about like 25,000 years ago. You hadn't yet, you were nomadic, you were moving, and every day got colder and colder. There's a part of us that would think, oh my God, it's just going to get so cold, it's never going to stop. And so you realize there's a twig of evergreen. It didn't die, and so you tuck it into your shirt. You start gathering. You realize it's getting colder, so you build your fires up bigger. You see, this is what happened. This is how human beings began to see the cycle of the seasons. And all of a sudden, at this time of year, prayers, rituals, community calls for the return of the sun, the return of warmth that allowed the nurturing foods to grow. This was probably before they were growing themselves, but at that junction, we began to see the cycle of seasons and know that they were holy. And I still believe the seasons are holy. And I'll be honest, the reason I see them as being holy is because of much of what we've discussed in the deep end. It's full of WTFs. What the heck is going on here? How can we take a breath and not see it as holy? Especially since the word breath in Latin is spiritus. Every breath is a spiritual event. And so much of our traditions come from Europe. Although, listen, the solstice celebrations, the coming of the sun, China, Iran, the Hopi Nation, all through Europe, Asia, everywhere, there's these rituals that developed, these homages to this time of year. Evergreens, Yule fires, candles, and wreaths. We associate all of this with Christmas. And if we look at the solstice celebrations, the one that Christmas really ripped off, right up front, is called Saturnalia. Saturnalia goes from the 17th through the 25th. Someone says Merry Christmas, say, and a happy Saturnalia to you. It was an amazing time. When we talk about Advent within the Christian tradition, we talk about hope and joy and peace and love. Well, those are all Jesus pieces, but they're also Saturnalia pieces. What was happening in Saturnalia is during that week, it was a huge party. Slaves, they were free of most of their duties. They could say whatever they wanted. The poor were given gifts. Children were given gifts. This is where wax fruit came from. You ever wonder why people do wax fruit? Well, it's Saturnalia. It was candles and waxed fruit and all kinds of gift giving and partying. Hope, joy, peace, and love. We associate them with Christmas, and we ought to associate them with the birth of this presence in our midst. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Theotokos, the birth of God. See, I think that's happening in each of us all the time. I think with every spiritual event of a breath, we are breathing into the world either what is good and healthy for life or what is not. And when we breathe into the world what is good and healthy, that's Theotokos. That is birth of God. If we look at our manger scenes, what we're looking at is an anthropomorphizing of the birth of God. And of course, Mary represents this. So I just want to celebrate a little bit today with my friends. Hope, joy, peace, and love. And know that thread goes back probably to the beginning of human consciousness, when we were just waking up to the seasons and the cycles of life, as we began to move with them, as we began to settle and plant our crops and realize they had to be working within that season, if you will, those seasons and cycles. So I'm here with Bob Hayes from Florida and Marianne Rudis from Spokane Valley. I'm Red Hawk, and I'm from the South Hill here in Spokane. And Bob, we'll start with you. I just threw out a lot, and I'm just trying to free associate and invite our listeners to be a little more conscious of all the pieces that went into this time of season and not get lost totally in the consumer aspect of it, although I have to say I kind of enjoy that piece too a little bit. So Bob, any comments?
Well, it's the perfect melding of myth and I'll use the term reality or let's try that. It's the perfect melding of the sacred and the non-sacred, the regular everyday life and the myth of renewal.
The sacred and the secular.
There you go. I'm fighting for words today.
Yeah. Well, we're old people, man. We're gonna maybe between the three of us, we got a whole brain.
Yeah, but it's always interesting in the sense of the renewal that Jesus Christ represents, and that renewal myth goes back, as you said, at least 25,000 years, probably, under different names and different. Slightly different conditions, but it always came back to the same thing. And I totally agree with you in terms of each moment, each breath is a renewal, and it can be the beginning of something totally new, depending upon your decision to make it a renewal. So it's great at this time of year. Especially for me in Florida, because it gives me a little break from the heat. I know that doesn't sound too great to the northerners, but it's just a really happy time of year, just in terms of, hey, we're starting a new one, and we gotta hopefully make it better. And just throw in one quick synchronicity that I always think of at this time, and that's the SON and the SUN. And how can it be more clearly stated than the myth of the Son is played out in the Son of God?
Amen. And I'm sitting here, and Marianne's sitting here. We're living in Spokane, which means children of the sun. I remember I wrote a letter to the editor about that once, and a woman wrote to me personally telling me I was a bad pastor because I talked about the SUN instead of the SON. I went, what? It was a native term. What do you want me to say? Hey, Marianne, how are you? And what's up with this Advent solstice thing?
Well, that's interesting, what you just said. But, I think it's a time of year that what I really have always loved about this time of year is that it's a collective pause, that we all kind of have decided that we're going to pause and remember that hope, peace, love, and joy, those good aspects of being human, and the fact that it goes back to ancient times, that this has always been something that's been embedded in us. It's easy to lose sight of that when we're dealing with the struggles and the traumas of the world, because there's some horrible things too that human beings can do. But to be able to have this time and to be in the rhythm with the natural world. So as the days get shorter, what is it, the 22nd, that's when things start to turn around and the light starts to return. And to be able to map this and then to participate in it with our rituals and with our traditions. And a lot of people may not even realize that. And my mind also goes to the whole idea of the shadow. So we are in the shadow and we're working through that, and there's hope. You opened up talking about finding an evergreen and sticking that, carrying that, and that's that hope that there is going to be green again. There is going to be life again as we kind of take a little winter snooze. Although we still have to go out and shovel the snow. But it's... So, Christmas used to be like my favorite time of year. I just loved it. And as I got older and had experiences and things changed, it's returning to be not necessarily a favorite time of year, but a cherished time of year. That it's something that not to take for granted. That take these seasons, take the moments, and celebrate each one of them. Spring is another one, summer, winter, all of it. But embrace where we're at. Embrace Advent. Embrace the coming of the light. Embrace the lessons that the darkness can teach us. So that's kind of my free association of this season at this time in my life.
Yeah, and you said two words that just I wrote down because they stuck out, and that's pause and participate. And we each do that to our own level of authenticity, if you will. It's a time to pause and to remember. Remember something, this thread in the human beings that is good, that is hopeful, that is reaching for peace, that does want to indulge in the joy, if you will, and to bask in this love that we know is part of who we are. And to me, remember, the word remember is the same as the root of the real word religion, religare, relink. Every time we remember, we relink, we participate in religion. And that's the deepest understanding of that, not the institutional understanding. The whole concept of being able to just stop. And, when I'm out in consumer world and people are running around, I remember that with every piece that most people are looking for, there's a human being that they're shopping for. There's something in their heart. And I try, and some are just inauthentic. They're just doing it because it's Christmas and they got to do it, and it's just one more thing. And that's okay too. But for most, it really is relational. In Saturnalia, the way that gifts were given to slaves, when I was reading about that, that's kind of an amazing thing. And slaves weren't in the same way we think about, black slavery here in this country. It was a class of human beings, but they were given an exceedingly amount of grace during this week. Same with the poor and same with children. Those who were vulnerable to the power systems were given a break. And in that break, we are called to, I love, pause and participate. And I think we should all stop and put a little evergreen in our belt or in our pocket. And that is a symbol of the hopefulness of human beings. And we've dealt with, is the human family going to survive? There's no way we can do the deep end without the dark. But this is a place where the dark is giving way to the light. And we would be remiss if we didn't lift that moment up and say, yes, oh hell to the yes, oh everything, yes, yes, yes.
Well, and it's the rhythms too. I mean, it comes and goes, and I think that being aware, we can go through our day and end the day and not remember what we did that day, especially if it was autopilot, right? And to be able to be present, and that's the present of Christmas. To click with those rhythms and be aware of them. And we've talked about this so many times about consciousness. How do you become conscious? How do you become aware? And it's taking those moments and living them now. But I love the idea of traditions too, where you do remember, you do link, and you bring forth those, you bring the past into the present in some ways. So,
well, I mean, if you look at what the Seder meal is around, Passover, That's exactly what it is. It's getting back inside that memory so you experience it some way. And I think that that's what's cool about this season. It really is universal. And although I love my traditions and I honor not just the traditions of the church year, if you will, but of the way the church year has rooted itself in a bigger order of understanding and used those understandings to help us more embody those goodness of peace, love, hope, and joy. Now, that doesn't mean the institution of the church gets away with stuff because it's indicted all over the place. However, there's something that does engender us. I walk into a big old department store, and I'll be honest, they got these big signs up: peace, love, joy. And I go, this is a trip. This is like the Twilight Zone, man. You know, we're in the deep pits of consumerism, and even there, these human qualities shine. And they're using them to sell, I'll give you that. However, they're also using the sell to remind us of something greater. That's in my mind, the way my mind thinks.
Well, think about why does it make you buy? You know, what is it that it's tapping into? That
was what I was going to get at, that you use the term human qualities. Well, you know, psychologists talk about perceptual invariance and how we learn to get around in the world by things that are fixed in that world. Well, the world is also patterns in social interactions. So there can be social invariance that we are able to tap into. It's, you know, we talked about the metaphor of the stream and all of this stuff. Well, these social rituals are like a boat that we can ride down the stream in, and we can all relate together. And I think that's what you're getting at in terms of the, you know, pausing and participating. But the reason why it's easy to fall into it, and the reason why it's easy to be abused from the outside of it, is that it is one of these invariants that we use as part of our perception of who we are. And when we're riding that boat down the stream, as it were, it becomes part of our self-definition. And because of the time of the year again, that taps into a perceptual invariant that we all have. We all experience the dark giving way to the light, and it's a cyclic thing. So yeah, it's perfectly natural. It's the human thing to do, but because we're only humans, we can be manipulated as we're participating.
Well, and you know, everything gets exploited, and that's just part of the nature of humanity. And the piece that to me is glorious in all this is that it is universal. You use the word together. It's the time of year where we're all experiencing and mostly celebrating. And let's look at the word universal from the universe. One song. It's a song that all humans have been singing. You know, if even you in the southern clime who have mellow winters, and I'll be honest, I think you guys are missing it, because I go outside, the snow, the quiet, it's like being in an anechoic chamber. It's just an amazing quietness. You can hear a rabbit hop in the snow. It's that quiet. I just put out a deer block, and the deer, they can jump my fence. They come in, and I put it so Bo can look out the window and we can watch the deer. You know, that there's something about that touches me. And I'll be honest, we each set up camp for our soul's sake, I think. And we all have different souls, thank God. That there's something here. I go, shit, I'm almost out of firewood. I got to go split some wood. And then I go out there and I'm splitting it. And all of a sudden, I'm doing Northwest Pranayam. Pranayam is sacred breathing. It's the air. I have never breathed air this clear. There's something about the season that is amazing. And it's going down to what, -7 tonight, Mary Ann?
Yeah, it's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold. And I'm
That's
not.
a wake up breath.
Yeah. And I'm not into it being that cold. However, again, we each find our sustenance. We each find a place where we can pause and participate. And I'm going to keep coming back to those words because I think that's what I want, is I want to participate in what the truth is of this season. And it's a human celebration, of which Christmas is one expression of it.
Yeah, I think the idea of hopefulness when there's so much, there are so many reasons to be in despair sometimes, that if we, and when you say participate in this season, it is a conscious effort. It's a conscious effort to be hopeful in the spite of adversity. It's a conscious effort to give love when you are experiencing hatred. And I think that the best part of, and I think you said something like this in the very beginning as well, this is something that lives with us all year long. That if we can nurture that seed right now and plant it deeply, then it can live with us throughout the year and we can revisit it. It can live inside of us, not just out in the external world, and we can carry it. So that sounds a little corny, I think.
No. As a matter of fact, I think you nailed one piece, and that's that this is a seed moment. This is, people, children say all the time when I was pastoring, how come we don't do this feel this way all year long? That's a good question. And if we start seeing this season as a seed moment, the plant in us that as the sun god comes back, the sun, in my tradition, SON, can grow in me, and more Theotokos can happen. That's the Mary circuit in each of us, is growing, growing that seed and then giving birth to it all year long. So I'm down with that. I don't think that's corny. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
And I think we can also, in terms of the rhythms of life, we can also begin to experience that kind of grace, if you will, at other times during the year. And maybe that's what you mean by carrying the seed along. But again, we're wired for the sun changes, the moon changes. We are in that rhythm, and the more we can be part of that rhythm, the more comfortable we can be in our own skins. And again, this is just the most easy to relate to expression of that relationship of us to the rhythms of the universe.
Amen. And I think, it's sad when we lose sight and we think it's just about this one baby, instead of seeing that one baby as an expression of something that is much greater. It's an expression of all babies. It's an expression of every good will that finds footing in the world. And I think that is what the season is about. And, here where it snows, I don't know if it's the season that makes people more gracious or the snow. And Marianne, you can relate to this. I mean, because everything slows down. People got to help each other, or you're going to have somebody stuck in front of you. All these different ways that relationships almost get recalibrated somehow lines up with the season. Of course, I don't, with Amazon, I don't go out as much, although I have to say, there's no way I'm missing the consumer aspect of Christmas. I've been to Costco, and I've been to Walmart and Target, and woohoo!
I don't get into it as much as you do.
Ever since I read Da Vinci, I swear the way he saw people has infected me in so many ways that made me pause and participate. And those words are going to stay in my mind just because that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, it's how do we do that in this season? How do we not get caught up? And on that note, we're coming to the end of our time. So, Marianne, final comments? Advent, Saturnalia, love, peace, joy.
I think it's easy for us when we get caught up in our everyday life to separate from the rhythms of life, and that this time of year is a time to remind us to reconnect. And the idea of and I love that. So I was raised Christian as well. I love that the beginning of the religious year begins now, because it is the birth of hope and peace and love and joy. And we can carry that with us into the new year. And then the new year is coming, and there's the whole sense of renewal, of growth, of living in the light. So that's
And I think we should acknowledge, I poo-poo the church a lot. I spent 40 years in it, so I have every right to do so. But the church got some things right. And I think the mindset that is of Advent is appropriate in my mind. And it's something the church got right. Bob, final comments?
Well, I just want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. And I hope that other traditions have something that they can relate to similarly. I was raised Christian also, and it comes natural to me to think in terms of Christian holidays and Christmas and the whole idea there. I really hope as a globe we can all find ways to look for hope and peace, and that's my wish for the holidays.
Amen. And
Yay.
And I will say, you two, you rock. I can't thank you enough for the conversation, the depth, the changes inspired in me. I love thinking about things in new ways, and I'm not done doing that. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Saturnalia. I could go through 14 different celebrations that are happening this time of year. Not all of them in the north. But it has to do with the growing season. It has to do with nourishment and life. It has to do with breath. It has to do with your well-being. And I think that that's the great recalibration of this time of year, that we might pause, remember, and participate in the deeper goodness of who we are as human beings. So, I sure hope all of you have a great holiday, whether it's a tree or your Hanukkah, whether it's Kwanzaa, or whether it's just Saturnalia and the birth of the sun. May we all find a little more of what dances between us and lift it up in the name of the one.